Let me tell you something people don't like to admit out loud. The world doesn't run on fairness. It runs on perception. How you're seen the second you walk into a room decides how that room treats you. Before you speak, before you explain, before you pull out the ticket, the paperwork, the proof that you did everything right. All that comes second. First comes the question everyone is silently asking, who is this person and what happens if I get this wrong? You ever notice how two people can ask for the same thing the same way and get completely different results? One waits, one gets waved through. That's not luck, that's presence. That's the weight you carry without saying a word. People respond to certainty. They respond to someone who looks like they expect cooperation, not permission. You don't have to threaten. You don't have to raise your voice. In fact, the louder you get, the weaker you look. Real confidence is quiet. It's controlled. It says, we're going to fix this, not can you please help me. Here's the truth. Systems don't intimidate people. People intimidate people. The rules are written on paper, but the rules are enforced by human beings. And human beings read signals fast. They read your posture, your eye contact, whether you're apologizing for taking up space or acting like you belong exactly where you're standing. You walk in hunched over, clutching a number, hoping today's the day, you're invisible. You walk in grounded, calm, like your time matters. Suddenly, options appear. I've watched doors open that were closed. I've watched problems solve themselves that were impossible. Not because of connections, not because of favors, but because of perception. People make decisions emotionally first, then justify them logically. If you look like someone who's going to be a problem, they'll help you fast. If you look like someone who will accept a no and sit back down, they'll give you exactly that. And here's where people get it wrong. They think this is about being tough. It's not. Tough is sloppy. Tough is noise. This is about certainty, about walking in like the outcome is already decided and everyone else is just catching up. When you believe that, other people start believing it too. Not because they love you, because they don't want complications. Perception is leverage. It's not about who you really are. It's about who people think you are in that moment. You can be the nicest person in the world and still project authority. You can be respectful without being submissive. There's a difference. One gets results, the other gets excuses. So before you complain about the system, ask yourself something honest. How did you walk into the room? Because the world didn't size you up after you spoke. It decided the moment it saw you. And once that decision's made, everything else follows. Now let's talk about something that gets people stuck for years without them even realizing it, the difference between compliance and confidence. Most people are trained to comply. Stand here, take a number. Wait your turn, don't make waves, be polite. And look, there's nothing wrong with being respectful, but somewhere along the line, respect got confused with surrender, and that's where things start going sideways. Compliance says, I'll take whatever you give me. Confidence says, we're going to get this handled. Same situation, same words maybe, totally different energy, and people feel that energy immediately. The person who complies is hoping for a good outcome. The person who's confident expects one. Hope puts you beneath the process. Expectation puts the process beneath you. You ever watch how fast someone moves when they think there might be consequences? All of a sudden, the rules aren't so rigid. The policy's got flexibility as supervisor becomes available. That's not because the system changed. It's because the posture changed. The confident person isn't asking for permission to be helped. They're assuming cooperation is the default. And when you assume that, others fall into line without even knowing why. Here's the mistake people make. They think confidence means confrontation. No, that's amateur stuff. Confidence is calm. It's steady. It's walking up to the counter like the conversation is already half over. You're not there to debate whether something can be done. You're there to decide how it gets done. There's no rush in your voice, no explanation overload. The more you explain, the more you sound unsure. The more unsure you sound, the more resistance you invite. Compliance, on the other hand, over-explains. It justifies, it waits for approval. And waiting sends a message. It says, You're in charge of me. Once that message is sent, getting it back is almost impossible because now you're not a priority. You're a task, something to deal with later, maybe. And let me tell you something else. Systems love compliant people. They don't challenge delays. They don't push back on nonsense. They accept that's just how it is. Confident people don't accept that, not loudly, not angrily. They just don't accept it. They pause, they look at you, and they let the silence do the work. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially when they know you're not going anywhere. This isn't about cutting lines or bullying your way through life. It's about refusing to shrink yourself to fit inefficiency. Your time matters. Your issue matters. And when you carry yourself like that's a fact, an opinion, others adjust. So the next time you're standing there, ticket in hand, ask yourself, are you complying with the process or are you confidently directing the outcome? Because one of those gets results and the other gets you waiting. Let me break another illusion people cling to, the idea that systems are solid, fixed, unmovable things, like they exist on their own. They don't. Systems don't run themselves. People run them. And people bend. Every time. The rule book might be thick, but the human enforcing it is always thicker with emotion, fear, ego, and self-interest. You've heard it before. That's policy. Sounds final, right?